So who's ever lost their car keys? Probably a lot of you, yeah. It's a sinking feeling in your stomach. You get stressed out. You I start thinking through contingency plans, like, can I get a lift here? How do I get home? It messes with your schedule, increases stress levels, and it makes some of us so, to the point where you can't necessarily get home to see your kids before they go to sleep at night. And if you're sitting here, you likely own, operate products that customers depend on. You're service owners or operators of tech platforms, product owners as well. We've all felt that moment in time where the metrics that you're seeing in your observability system are describing a P0 that's unfolding in front of you. Now, combine those two feelings together, and this is the issue we were facing at Rivian as we experienced one of the first large customer-facing incidents of our short history. In the morning of April 3rd, 2023, roughly 2% of Rivian customers were affected by a novel cloud incident. This new and unanticipated interaction between cloud services and vehicles somehow created a situation where our customers, using their mobile phone as their key, were unable to access the Rivian. So today I will traverse you through Rivian's connected vehicle platform. We'll start with the technology and capabilities of our R1, how we ingest and manage vehicle data, using cloud services, and how that data is accessed by customers who take these vehicles on adventures around the planet. So, hi, I'm Beau Christensen. I work as an SRE at Rivian Automotive. This is actually my truck this spring on Weston Pass in Colorado in the mud. I come from the tech industry. This is like the first company I've worked for that's made a physical object of any kind. Something that you can touch and open and actually live in if you want to. I'm a lifelong car nerd as well, so my vehicle body count includes things like an 83 or a Quattro, E30 BMWs, Porsches, Camaros, motorcycles. Like I built lifted, Tacomas and 4Runners for overlanding. But my lifelong love that I've had since I was 26 is a white 1990 BMW M3 named Lola. So there's a narrative in here around how SREs who spend their careers dealing with emergencies need adrenaline to de-stress, but I digress. Long story short, I had kids, and I started to feel terrible about the damage that I had been doing to the planet, their planet, with the hobbies that I loved. I was quite purposeful in seeking out roles at Rivian to see if I could bring my skills as an SRE to bear on the problems they were facing. So we build electric adventure vehicles, the R1T and the R1S on the left here, and pretty soon the R2 and R3 platforms. This is our mid-size platform. We also build delivery vans for Amazon. If you live in California or Colorado or the Pacific Northwest, they're pretty ubiquitous now. They're kind of all over the place. And they're pretty easy to pick out. They have this light bar that goes across the nose with these two oval stadium lights. It's become pretty distinct, and it's our sort of iconic face to the world now. And if the infamous BMW designer Chris Bangle is correct in his thinking that vehicles, cars are our avatars in the real world, then for me personally, this one fits me well. So each Gen 1 R1T and R1S has 17 different computers running the systems in it, supported by multiple kilometers of wiring, sensors, cameras, storage, etc. These computers have names like the telematics control module and the battery management system and the central gateway module, or CGM. Our Gen 2 platform, pictured here, which we just announced, has moved to a zonal architecture, which reduces the amount of ECUs or computers inside the vehicles to 7. It drastically simplifies the electrical architecture and removes almost 3 kilometers of copper from the vehicle and wiring, which is like 40 pounds. It's kind of crazy. We have like a ball in the office. That's all the wire that we removed. These trucks they're rolling data centers. They generate between 15 and 25,000 signals at a sub-millisecond speed. And unlike other IoT applications, they go missing for days or weeks at a time. People drive them out into the wilderness and go camping with no cell connection whatsoever. The signals are connected by the telematics control module, or TCM. They're stored locally on disk before being shipped to the cloud. Rivian engineering teams use these metrics to do science on the vehicles. So investigate mechanical failures, analyze how systems are depending on each other, do things like analyze pack degradation over time, that kind of stuff. We also maintain a copy of the vehicle state in the cloud for customers to interact with. So if you via your mobile app, so you can unlock the car or open the door for your mom, or turn the AC on, check on your pets, open the frunk, whatever you want to do, change the battery charge targets, etc. But these rolling data centers can also hold your entire family, your dogs, your tent, water, food, Christmas presents, 2x4s, bags of cement, sod for your lawn, all of this stuff, whatever else you can think of, all while being able to accelerate to 60 miles an hour in less than 2.5 seconds and hit 130 miles an hour. It can generally smoke 95% of the Ferraris ever built. They can also rock crawl up Hell's Revenge or Poison Spider in Moab. They can drift sideways around a rally track, and from personal experience, they can access some of the most amazing campsites I have ever seen. And all this to me is like a car nerd, all this capability packed into this type of vehicle, into a pickup truck specifically, spending all that time building fast cars and lifted vehicles to do different things. This can do it all in one package. It's amazing. But for me, as an SRE, the new and interesting things here are is when these incredibly capable vehicles start, adventuring across the planet and then have to interact with things that we use every day, like Kafka. But really, these interactions are still in their nascent phase. The automotive industry is going through a revolution right now that's driven by new upstart manufacturers that are starting to blur the lines between technology and transportation. Many auto companies are now designing rich, connected vehicle experiences, managing the power of technology and the cloud against the dependability required for products that are rolling around the planet with people in them. So at Rivian, we talk a lot about forever and what that means. It's part of the long-term thinking that we try to instill into the culture of Rivian. We're building a company that is designed to have a positive impact, not just today, but for generations to come on the planet. That same thinking translates to our cloud systems. Our vehicles are warrantied for 8 years and 185,000 miles. So this system needs to exist for decades or more and beyond, not until kind of, a lot of us build systems until the B round, right? Where we get acquired and they kind of they go away. We don't have that luxury. I know a lot of us end up building a cleanup service or a bash script or something that is designed to exist for a couple of weeks, and it ends up living for years at a time and becomes this nasty fulcrum of a system. much longer than it was intended to run. But when was the last time you had to like consciously design a system that had to last for decades? It's definitely my first time. So we'll give you some metrics. Roughly 130,000 vehicles on the road today. Peak load for us is about 30,000 pods running. We crossed 1 billion miles this spring driven across the fleets. And let's see, 15,000 inbound vehicle payloads per second through our cloud gateway. And our Druid clusters ingest roughly 4 million messages per second. So we'll go through a little bit of a mental model here. Within the data platform, our cloud services handle the ingestion and management of these billions and billions of signals that are produced by the vehicles. Each of the 130,000 trucks on the road, they stream all of their telematics up through an LTE shark fin, which sits on the top of the truck, which you can see there. These go up through AT&T's network across the internet. They hit our cloud gateway servers, which are hosted in Amazon. The gateway systems ingest the data, they store it quickly into a cache, and then forward the data off to the initial stages of our data pipeline. And these pipelines are built using, common technologies that you're likely used to. We use MSK for our pub subsystem. We use Flink for our streaming applications and pipelines, data processing and standardization and archiving. We partition the data into different fleets as well. So we have, our commercial customers. We have the Rivian fleets, and then we have consumer fleets as well. We do most of our analytics on Rivian's internal fleet. It's much easier for us to access that data as engineers. Due to privacy concerns. And we very, very purposefully split diagnostics and telematics information from geodata. This is critically important for us so that we can apply much, much stricter rules on geolocation data after it's stored in a separate Druid data store. So we store telemetry in a few places. For low latency applications like real-time diagnostics or mobile applications, we store the data in Apache Druid. Druid's a high performance, highly scalable database used for real-time data ingestion and time series analytics. Our data uses a type-subtype model. We organize the data into tree structures, and then there is a normalizing or standardization step that hashes the data before it's stored into Druid's columnar database. For longer term storage, we send the data, the telematics off to Databricks into the Delta Lake. This is used for fleet-wide analytics. So if you're trying to figure out like 12-volt battery health across tens of thousands of vehicles, that data is anonymized, and then you can do easy analytics on all the diagnostics information in Databricks. So managing the cost of Druid has been a significant and particularly interesting challenge for us. We run Druid on EKS because we like to punish ourselves. It allows us to use the same tools and patterns to manage Druids that we do with the other infrastructures or other services that we run on EKS. But it also, Druid's a stateful application, so it makes Kubernetes upgrades challenging. If you're interested in this area, we've done quite a few talks about our technical approach and implementation with Druid, with Imply, who is kind of like the main maintainer of the Druid code base. I'd encourage you to deep dive. My colleagues, Connie Wang and Pramod Amini, did a roundtable with Eric Cheddar, where they deep dive into how we've set Druid up. Pramod has also committed some changes back to Druid as well. His changes parallelize the serialization and persistence across different time chunks, which allows us to flush data out of Druid ingestion much more quickly, and sort of reduced our overall resource requirements for the ingestion layer by a factor of 5, which saved us on multiple occasions. We're also moving to tiered storage in Druid 20+. That'll allow us to maintain current retention levels while we scale up to the next level of vehicle production. MSK has also been a challenge. From a resilience perspective and operationally, it's been fantastic. It's very dependable, easy to scale up, and you can scale it down now, thanks Amazon. But you definitely pay for what you get. As our fleet has grown, we've had to adjust retention time to remove some of that buffer our streaming team has had. So if anything goes wrong in one of the fleet pipelines, we've had a very large buffer that has had to reduce over time. We're also aggressively moving the clusters to Graviton instances. I think it's roughly a 24% increase in performance and decrease in cost. So this will allow us to keep retention time fairly wide as we move to the next levels. Yeah, so we run all of our workloads on EKS. We're moving auto-scale workloads to Carpenter as quickly as possible to help minimize underutilized EC2 instances. This has been massively helpful for us, especially in our lower environments. Those tend to be lower intensity workloads that spread out across multiple nodes. In some cases, for us, the lower environment cost has dropped by over 60%, thanks to Carpenter's use of spot instances and its ability to effectively pack workloads into smaller instance types. We've also reduced inter-AZ network costs by tightly controlling how Kafka interacts with Flink. We've RI'd lots of instances in RDS clusters. We spend every 2 weeks with the FinOps team going over our bill in excruciating detail. And we've even redesigned some services to, I think, better make use of Amazon's preferred query patterns for things like DocDB and Dynamo. So all of this work has reduced our per vehicle cloud spend by 180% and counting. We have higher targets for this year. We're targeting, I think, 185% by the end of this year, reduction in costs since we started producing vehicles in 2021. Now, if any of you are students of the late Dr. Richard Cook or Dr. David Woods, you likely have some alarm bells going off in your brains right now. Like our first generation vehicles, our cloud systems were extremely overbuilt to the point of being financially unsustainable. Our Kafka topics had a 7-day retention time. Our Druid clusters had 6 months of hot telemetry data in them. We had custom node groups built per workload. And in the beginning, we even dumped raw PCAPs from the CAN network, which is the control area network, the vehicles network. We dumped raw PCAPs, stored them and uploaded them to the cloud over customers' Wi-Fi every night. Gigabytes worth of data per vehicle. If you've heard of launch customers complaining that their pickup trucks were blasting through their bandwidth caps at their house, this is why. But all of these initial attributes of the system meant we had loads of extra capacity that could and did absorb novel issues we knew were coming as we shook down a brand new platform. We had buffers in place that allowed us to the time and the luxury to understand these initial platform issues deeply without an outage in play. We could study the metrics, we could understand the dependencies deeply, make corrections in design and resourcing without being under the threat of a customer-facing incident. We're in an environment right now where everyone, all of us, are trying to save costs. Save a few thousand here or there because it all adds up. And for some of us, myself included, there's a lot at stake. The companies and the missions that we are trying to drive towards may not exist if we don't do our jobs here. But if we strip away all of these resources from a system, make sure you stay open to the new ways it's going to behave. As the capacity of our system is reduced, the ability to adjust to potential damage or respond to consequences, as the definition states, goes away. The system operating below the line, to quote John Allspaw, is likely behaving much differently than your outdated mental model. It's failing in nasty new ways that your team is not expecting. And these things, run tabletops, do exercises. Your team needs to be prepared for this new way your system is operating. These things don't take up a lot of space in your Amazon bill, but they are incredibly effective, and I would venture to say that they are necessary if you're taking on aggressive cost-saving measures. Practice failure now more than ever. So, back to losing our keys. On April 3rd, 2023, Rivian customers opened their mobile app and were unable to log in. They were stuck on the planet, wherever they were, until we figured out what was going on. This was one of the first large customer-facing incidents we had ever encountered. There were lots of people on the call, lots of leaders, lots of experts, lots of breakout rooms, lots of updates flowing up and down the leadership chain. So the initial issue focused on a flood of 401s coming from the identity stack as dependent services attempted to refresh tokens. The mobile app was one of these services, and at the time, the mobile app logged users out whenever they encountered a 401. It was as a security measure. I have to say that the mobile team this day was incredibly impactful. As SREs, we're generally trained to get the customer back online, stop the bleeding as your first priority in an incident. And one of the very first things the mobile team did this day was to rewrite all the 401s as 500s at the GraphQL layer. And the mobile app did not log people out when encountered a 500, just tossed an error. One could argue about the proper use of HTTP status codes in this context, but we won't go there. But by taking this quick action, they kept thousands of customers logged into their phones and likely saved the day for a lot of people. The identity system was healthy, however. We did find correlating DNS timeouts. They were intermittent, but spiked at roughly the same time as the 401 started propagating. But from the data we had, the core DNS nodes were also healthy, showing no errors in the logs. Metrics were okay, healthy pods, the KTab and console, everything was good for core DNS. So we initially triaged this issue as an out-of-date TCP stack driver, like deep in the Amazon Linux kernel. We spent a few hours with Amazon TAMs. They applied some magical Amazon TAM patches to the instances. This did turn out to be a red herring that we were running down. However, as the TAMs were going through metrics for the particular instances, they realized that there was one small instance that was hitting its connection limit for, or row limit for ACLs. And it turns out that all of our core DNS nodes were, or all of our core DNS pods were on this same small node. Now, I'm no Amazon TAM, but I will bet you a car payment that Amazon's implementation of ACLs is based on something called IP tables. And IP tables is exactly that. It's a connection rule set, keeps track of TCP connections on a particular instance. And we essentially maxed out the rows in IP tables for this particular instance type. And once those connections hit their limit, the core DNS pods were unable to respond to resolution requests beyond the table's upper limit. And because the requests were being blocked at the access control layer, core DNS never saw them and never threw in any type of error whatsoever. Okay, so can you guess how all these pods got packed onto the same instance type? What service likes to very efficiently pack together workloads on smaller, different instance types that you haven't necessarily tested on yet? Carpenter. Both our savior when controlling the cost of our infrastructure and one of the major contributing factors to this particular event. So we'll go through the incident narrative real quick here. As part of our cost savings efforts, we rolled out Carpenter to the production clusters to great effect, but it also took away the extra capacity we had in the system, and specifically ACL rows per instance for the core DNS servers, which in turn caused the identity service to 401, which triggered a security feature on the mobile app, which logged people out of their apps, which invalidated the vehicle key on the phone, which removed their ability to unlock and operate the vehicle. So there are other narratives I could traverse, but for me, in our context, this is the most powerful. So in closing, I'll try again to echo the importance of managing the adaptive capacity in your system. As you and your team, especially as you and your team, deploy cost savings measures. None of us can really know exactly what's happening below the line in these massive systems we create. Systems that families depend on, that can take us across deserts, to the Arctic Circle and back, or just get a dad home to see his kids before they go to sleep at night. That's it. I hope I gave you some insights into technology challenges, dedicated people at Rivian that try and keep the vehicles and services up and running for you guys. Thanks. So I do have one extra slide. Yeah, so I'm not affiliated with Rivian at all, but if you're interested, this is a quick plug for, but if you're interested in working remote in some amazing places, check out wildspaces.work. The DevOps Days Rockies team has been running these events for a couple of years now. And essentially we use the power stored in electric vehicles to create a working network in the backcountry using Starlinks and unified gear. And you essentially bring your laptop, you bring food, shelter, water, raincoat. We do, and we work from the backcountry for a couple of days. We do a retro at the end of the day, so you can talk about work with other people across the industry, and do an open spaces on events that may have come up during your workday. But it's a great way to like shake up your work week, do different things, and get different perspectives on your work. But yeah, head there if you'd like to know more. We're doing it in Colorado right now only, but thanks.
All right, that was an awesome story. Thank you, Beau. I'm also a geek and a car guy, so I related to a lot of that. Also, further proof that at some point it's definitely DNS. We already knew that, but it's always DNS.
And the network.
Yeah, and we have about 10 minutes for some question and answer. So who's got questions? We've got microphones in both of the aisleways here. If anyone's got a question, head to the microphone. Nobody? Well, I guess your explanation was pretty thorough. I guess I've got a question for you then. What were some of the actions that you took to prevent this type of situation from occurring again?
Yes, make sure Carpenter does not control any of the instances on your control plane would be the first one, yeah. We've also, like the the mobile key no longer acts like it did initially. We've moved to, in the Gen 2 vehicles, we moved to something called CCC, which is a standard for NFC keys, like you use on your mobile phone to pay for your coffee or whatever. The same type of standard exists on the vehicles now, so you can just kind of like swipe to open the trucks. So it's not cloud dependent or not mobile app dependent anymore. Yep.
Great. And I think you mentioned in your talk that the first generation of the vehicle was also overbuilt, similar to some of the capacity that you originally had in the cloud. Can you talk a little bit more about maybe what some of the fun over-engineered stuff in the trucks?
Yeah, like we talk about this in the investment calls and stuff like that too, but we're just removing a bunch of the ECUs from the trucks, all the silicon that you can take out of the vehicles. The more you can build in-house, the better it is for us. We're not as dependent on suppliers. We're more vertically integrated, as everybody likes to say. We also removed something like 100,000 fasteners from the vehicle by building the body panels differently, which has been awesome from like a parts perspective, from like manufacturing perspective, and just weight savings generally, along with the wiring and all the things that I mentioned. So yeah. By Gen 2, they're great.
What's one of the features of the Gen 2 that you think is most interesting?
Well, there's two. There's a new battery chemistry in the lowest model, which is an LFP pack. You can charge it to 100% all the time, which is awesome. And then we have a electrochromatic roof now that will tint at the push of a button, which I think is awesome. Yeah.
That is awesome. I want one of those. I also, as someone who's constantly breaking body panel clips, I appreciate that you reduced the number of fasteners. Anyone out there with questions? Yeah, step right up.
Hey, Danny from Toyota Connected. Your outage sounded eerily similar to one that we also had on AWS, so thanks, Amazon. My question, it sounds like both our companies are sort of in the same space of saving money and telematics. So I guess my question to you is, out of all the cost saving measures that you guys have taken in the past year, like what is one that stood out to you was like, oh, that's interesting, didn't expect that to save us that much money?
I would say like the interzone AZ networking costs. I was like, what? Amazon charges us for this? Like they tell us to distribute loads across multiple AZs and then like charges us for that network cost. That one I was really mad about and was surprising. I also we rewrote the gateway team rewrote our front end. So that gateway ingestion service that I talked about in the beginning, we rewrote that in Rust from Python. And it went from, I think it was like 50 something nodes down to 5. So that was huge for us as well. It took, I think it took over a quarter to build, but it was well worth it in the end, yeah.
Oh, awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
Anyone else in the audience got a question? No? All right, I've got another one for you. If you can speak about it. Sure. Can you talk a little bit about the scale of the engineering team? Like with 130,000 vehicles out on the road, how many engineers are supporting those cars?
Engineers in our context is like a very diverse group, which is one of the cool things about working here. It's like there's chemistry engineers and mechanical engineers and electrical engineers. I think the software team is a little over 1,000 people right now. Between Palo Alto, Normal, and Belgrade. Yep.
Well, I think it sounds like you've had a bunch of adventures. What is the most sublime, awe-inspiring place that you visited?
Like in the truck or ever?
I guess whichever one's a better story.
Let's see, Deception Island in Antarctica, I would say. It's great. It's like an old volcano.
Very cool. All right, last call for questions. All right, well, thank you both for that fantastic talk. please give Beau another round of applause.
Thanks.